This is a show that covers all sorts of issues within policing: race, gender, youth violence, corruption. I asked Peter if he saw it as some sort of metaphor for British society today.
Well, that would have to be quite a meaty metaphor, if it was. I think it's meant to be a crime show that people can enjoy.
Well, there is that too.
Thriller. Let's not forget that that's really what's going on in it. But inevitably, if you're going to responsibly try to make a show about the police in London, a contemporary show dealing with a contemporary and believable London, all of these issues are going to come up.
Yeah.
So I think we felt a responsibility to respond to them.
Well, apart from being a meaty metaphor, I guess it would be a bleak metaphor as well in many ways. And I just wonder whether the thing that we've all been focusing on here in terms of the Met Police is the Louise Casey report from last year, which was absolutely devastating about aspects of the Met. And I wondered if that informed this show a bit.
Well, inevitably it does, because, that report made it clear that they believed that the Met was institutionally racist. And clearly there are also real problems with misogyny and some of the horrific cases that we've seen with police officers doing terrible things. But I think, yes, that's the world that our show inhabits. But at the same time, we wanted to try to make characters who were rounded and believable and not just black and white. So how do people come to be like that? And how do situations develop where that kind of behavior is permitted to go on? So we have a look at that. But it's largely, about, an older police officer played by myself who has been involved in a case which some shade is thrown on by a younger police officer played by Kush Jumbo, who suspects that there may have been a miscarriage of justice and I may have been responsible for that. And I don't take very kindly to her showing up and suggesting that.
Well, your character is endlessly fascinating, complex, harried, perhaps haunted. Just tell us a little bit about your character as you understand him, without giving anything away too much.
Yeah, well, in a way, it's, we've all been around the block with characters like this. He's a grizzled cop of a certain age who's about to retire. And I'm always fascinated by what it's like. What's it like to be a detective and see the worst and the best of humanity? What does that do to you? And what does that do to your central core of morality, if you have one? Where does that go? How do you pragmatically get through the day and still try to do the right thing? So in a way, I'm considering all these elements when I'm playing that part.
So these are more complicated questions than many characters inhabit, I would say already. I'm just very interested. This is the first time that you have played a cop, I think, perhaps surprisingly. How does it match as a role in terms of its complexity and interest to the very big roles that you're associated with? I'm thinking of the Doctor or Tucker or whatever.
Yeah, well, things like Doctor Who or Malcolm Tucker and the thick of it, I mean, they're very out there. You know what I mean? They really present they don't hide their emotions very much. Malcolm doesn't hide his emotions very much. He does say what he likes and he gets on with it. And Doctor Who does the same. It's very clear what's going on with him. But with a character like Hegarty, he has developed a means of veiling, himself and what's going on inside from the outside world. So that was quite complicated because my instincts are always to be noisier and shout more.
So you're pulling it in a bit, dialing it down a bit.
Yeah, and there's also that thing of, people always say, screen acting is about doing nothing, but it's not really. You can't do nothing because that's boring. That's just switching off, unless your character is switched off, which occasionally does happen. So I think it was trying to develop an internal life or landscape that I could still plug into while we were shooting that wasn't too out there.
this is clearly a show which is intended to have some impact in the world outside. Yes, it's, as it were, the television equivalent of a page-turner. It's got a great plot and all the rest of it, but you want it to have some kind of impact. And you've talked about miscarriages of justice and all that. And right now, here in London, we are absolutely obsessed by the TV show on ITV, actually, about the sub-postmasters, the hundreds of people who suffered a really grotesque miscarriage of justice at the hands of the post office. Just your reflection on the power of TV drama to actually change the world outside, change the world of politics and the world of power, at least a bit, and at least for a while.
I think my reflection is really on the weakness of the government to not have acted on this before. Yes, it's great that a TV show makes a mark, but why are we even in this position? It's not up to, we're entertainers. We at the end of the day, we're there for people to relax and come on and get a story or whatever. The fact that this wasn't dealt with before is scandalous, or as are many things, sadly, in our society. I think it's fantastic that the show's done that, and that it's brought people to understand what's been going on. But that covers up the real issue.
I was talking to Ian Hislop about this yesterday, and we've had more than 10 years of solid journalism done on this subject, and it being raised in the House of Commons, and absolutely be-all has happened in that period until a TV drama, brought it all to the boil.
Yeah. So it's just yet another incident that reflects the very poor state our politics are in.
Let me just ask you about The Doctor, because I have to. I'll be lynched if I don't. Did you see the Christmas special, and what do you make of the new Doctor?
Great. I love him. I love him. I think
he's great.
I think he's great. He's just so full of vigor and love and excitement and drama, and you don't know what's going to happen with him. And he's just got great energy, and he's just so watchable. I just want to see what he does and what happens and what adventures he gets into. I think it's brilliant. It's a very difficult part to kind of. It's not a difficult part, but it's an unusual part. You have to have a certain kind of set of goodies in your toolbox to make it work, and he's got them in spades.
We number the doctors these days a bit like the Americans number their presidents. He's number 15, you are number 12, and I remember talking.
I don't ascribe to that numbering system.
You don't?
No.
Why not?
Because it's just something that Americans made up.
I see. Okay, that's a good response. Let me ask you, I remember talking to David Tennant just before he became the Doctor, and we were talking about how his entire life was going to change as a result. He wasn't going to be able to go out in public in the same way. The amount of obsessional interest in him was going to go to extraordinary heights and so forth. And he said, I was very much aware that the last few weeks or so before I became the Doctor on screen were the last few weeks of any kind of privacy in my life, and it did change things. And I just wondered if you had a similar experience yourself.
Yeah, and funnily enough, it was David I spoke to before it all started, and he said, "Yes, you will. Your visibility will change." And I think, yes, that does happen, and it's a change in your life, and you have to discuss that with your family. Because I was very happy with my level of fame, if you like, or celebrity that I had before, and it just suddenly go through the roof. But that's not altogether an unpleasant thing. People are very nice. I get people come and have very sweet interactions. The Doctors are very positive. It's a bit like playing Santa Claus or Peter Pan or something like that. People are generally quite pleased to see you. So that it can be a nice thing in your life.
Yes. Malcolm Tucker, perhaps a little bit less gentle on the whole. Did you ever worry when you were looking at that role that you would then become typecast? Because Tucker is such an aggressive, full-on, and extraordinary character that you can see producers looking in the future, directors saying, we want a bit of danger, we want a really dangerous, sardonic figure here. That must be Capaldi. Has that changed? Has that happened to you?
No, that was a transformation in my career. All those things that you've described are things that I wanted.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it, but what happened was people took me more seriously, because before that I was a kind of amiable geek from Local Hero or something, or, someone in a gentle comedy kind of guy. And suddenly I was transformed into this Mephistophelian, kind of Machiavellian kind of creature, which gave me a kind of complexity that was attractive then for other roles. So I was delighted, if you like, to be. That was meant being typecast in that direction. Yeah. I was very happy with that. But also I think Malcolm was a kind of one-off. He's a sort of product of his times and product of Armando and all of the writers. I think, one couldn't really repeat that in other roles. It wouldn't really work. It's particular to that role that he had as of being a spin doctor.
I think Malcolm has now settled into becoming a centrist dad and has his own podcast, as I understand it. But I know that Will Smith, who was involved originally, would quite like to reboot Malcolm Tucker and the Thick of It. But I'm guessing from what you've said that you wouldn't be terribly keen on that.
Well, the reason I'm not terribly keen on it is because I think it's beyond a joke. And joking about it just is in some way takes the spotlight away from the problems. And I think the problems are profound. And, we're in the middle of a climate crisis. We're in the middle of a time when we can't trust the government. Where there seems to be a level of corruption that's gone on that's quite, extraordinary. And listen, we could do a Thick of It, which was really funny. It would make jokes about all that. But I think it would be letting them off in some way. It would be
trivialising.
Yeah. I think it's too serious. I think we're in tough, these are hard times politically, and we have to be responsible and aware.
Yes. Finally, a self-indulgent question, because I love to draw, and I know you were at Glasgow Art College way back when. Do you still draw? Is drawing still important to you? Is art still important to you?
Yeah, I do. I like to doodle now and then, and it does help sort of in work. I mean, fun enough, even when we were doing a criminal record, and I was trying to, because I hadn't really played a character like Hegarty before, so I was thinking, how do I provide myself with tools to trigger this character in myself? And one of the things that I did was I got a little sketchbook, and I stuck some photographs and pictures from the paper and little headlines and things that I thought were had an echo or resonance with that character. And also I started painting them. I started adding colour to them and drawing, so that there was actually a visual stimulus rather than actors we tend to have, it's always words and bits of script and bits of a speech that trigger things. I wanted to see what would happen if you could have a visual thing. So I do that, yes, and I used to doodle a lot on the tube. That's what I used to do. People would say, I try and draw people and not catch their eye, but so I've got hundreds of those.
Peter,
they never amount to anything. That's the trouble. I've just got hundreds of doodles of people on the tube, and I never done anything with them.
Ah, well, one day there'll be a big grand exhibition in central Glasgow or somewhere. Peter, you've been very, very generous with your time and your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me.